This is Things You Might Not Have Heard, and I am Jay Cleveland Payne, and queued up for you today 8 stories from yesterday, from Tuesday, present for you on this Wednesday, that were vetted as conversational by you. They cover information, politics, current events, and pop culture news. We are talking astronauts, we're talking furries, and we're talking the Statue of Liberty. And we have 5 other stories that involve a lot of stuff involving Donald Trump, because he involves himself in a lot of stuff these days. Now, we'll explain the vetting process at the end of all the headlines and give you some other things to enjoy. But make sure you are up to speed with what we're doing. If you're brand new here, we're going to give you some ways to make that work out for you. Go to our website. This is theconversationproject.com, and you can get the full information on what we offer at The Conversation Project. And email us as you will with questions, comments, concerns. We'll do it all at theconversationinbox@gmail.com. Today is Wednesday, as I said, but it's Wednesday, the 19th of March in 2025. No particular order for these 8 stories I'm presenting for you. We'll give you some context on how they got here and how we picked them up, and give you full details when we go to the teaser section and talk about the feeds and the engagement, things like that. But right now, these are the stories that I chose from the stories that you said are conversational for this morning. And for this morning, or afternoon, evening, night, whenever you're watching this, we're starting off with a pretty big story. And we're going to Russia, technically, by way of Ukraine, as the White House is reporting back on the phone call Donald Trump had with Putin. And he is down for a pause in the fights with the Ukrainians and some restructuring of energy infrastructure attacks going forward. Putin has, in theory, agreed to a 30-day cessation on energy attacks, or attacks to energy infrastructure in Ukraine, following the proposal by U.S. President Donald Trump. This agreement aims to alleviate the humanitarian impact of the ongoing conflict that serves as a preliminary step towards a broader peace negotiations. Now, while the energy infrastructure truce marks progress, Putin did not give a full-throated endorsement for a full ceasefire yet, especially concerns over Ukraine's potentially using this pause to basically rearm. He also reiterated that demands of the cessation of foreign military aid to Kyiv, which is a big deal. Despite these reservations, both leaders have agreed to initiate further negotiations, including discussions on maritime ceasefire in the Black Sea, with talks on scheduled to basically work out in the Middle East to do those talks. In the Middle East, Donald Trump and both Vladimir Putin are free to not worry about anybody really interrupting, because no one's going to try to arrest Putin because he's in a nation that does not actually follow ICC guidelines and won't try to deport him. So there's that. There's also the fact that Donald Trump is the one negotiating with Vladimir Putin, and there really are no Ukrainians involved in anything whatsoever, which is another, there is that. The international community has responded cautiously to the development, with European leaders having expressed skepticism regarding Russia's commitment to lasting peace, also citing previous violation of ceasefire agreements. When they tend to lie to you, at some point you stop calling wolf and you just realize what's going to happen. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has acknowledged the temporary suspension of strikes, but emphasized the need for a comprehensive enforcement peace plan. Essentially, somebody has to force Russia to actually not do things like shoot at them, because given the chance to just be themselves, they will continue to do things like shoot at them. We have finally touchdown, splashdown, and back to safety on terra firma for NASA astronauts Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams. Back from 9 months stranded in space, what was supposed to be 9 days, turned to a much longer trip. Barry Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams safely returned to Earth after the unplanned 9-month mission aboard the International Space Station. Initially scheduled for an 8-day test of flight for the Boeing Starliner spacecraft, which failed its test, left them stranded up in the spacecraft, where they became members of the crew for an extended period of time. Very extended period of time, 9 months to be exact. They landed back on Earth from a space liner that was built by, of all things, SpaceX, the Dragon space capsule, coming down with the crew from that capsule, or crew from the rest of the space station, Nick Hague and Russian cosmonaut Alexandria Gorbro. They left the ISS aboard the Dragon X capsule and took the 17-hour journey back here to Earth, splashed down on the coast of Florida on this afternoon in a daytime landing, daytime splashdown, which is fairly rare, but it just so happened that it lined up together. and it made for the perfect photo op for all the news agencies to carry for last night. Upon recovery, the crew was transported to a routine medical evaluation. You know, you do that every time you come back from space to make sure they're okay. And they were flown to Texas, and they'll be reunited with their families fairly soon. Despite the unexpected extensions, Wilmore and Williams conducted approximately 150 experiments on the 286-day stay, contributing to valuable data in NASA's research. Williams now has 608 cumulative days in space and ranks among the second among U.S. astronauts in total time spent in space. So this little diversion got her some extra time and a good spot in history. Essentially, one more trip up there and a little bit of time will put her up number one, but we'll see if that happens. If she's really ready to go back up there anytime soon. Now, from the words from the astronauts, all astronauts, they want to keep going as much as possible. The 9-month sort of delay in getting home was kind of a bit, but we'll see when their next trips go aboard. Also yesterday, late in the evening, because we waited all day for this, the U.S. government released the thousands of more of these classified pages for the JFK assassination, happening sort of in the late evening after they spent all night last night going through and redacting what they had to or what they could in the last minute because Trump promised this would be released today. 80,000 pages of documents released from the 1963 assassination of President Donald J. Sorry about that. President John F. Kennedy. The action aligns with President Donald Trump's executive order aimed at promoting transparency concerning historical events. The newly released files encompass various topics and discussions about the communist threat from Cuba, Lee Harvey Oswald's connection to the Soviet Union, and espionage activities during the 60s. While historians and researchers are delving into the documents, initial assessments suggest that they may not contain groundbreaking revelations, but will provide deeper insights to the geopolitical climate of the era. No smoking guns will be seen, but we'll know more about exactly the history of what's going on because we'll know the exact history in this area as opposed to just sort of our knowledge, our remembrance of things going forward. This release also documents the related, also includes documents related to assassinations of Senator John F. Kennedy and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., reflecting broader efforts to declassify records concerning pivotal events in history. The National Archives has made these documents accessible online and at their College Park, Maryland location, with ongoing digital efforts to facilitate access to the public. Now, many people, especially folks around the King family, did not want these things released so quickly. They wanted them vetted a little better first. And I guess they got a little extra vetting, if you will, but they were released. Trump promised they'd all be released, and they were released on time as he basically put a deadline to this. But it did take a while and some late night cramming, if you will, to go through what needed to be pulled back in the last minute. What got pulled back yesterday as well? Not last minute, but something that was probably going to happen anyway, but in the fashion that it's done, it does give people raising eyebrows, where Trump has revoked Secret Service protection for Hunter and Ashley Biden as a, quote, effective immediately. Like, guys, leave the terminal. It's done. President Donald Trump has ordered the immediate cessation of Secret Service protection for Hunter and Ashley Biden, the adult children of former President Joe Biden. This decision, announced on March 17th, affects the security details comprising approximately 18 agents for Hunter and 13 for Ashley. I didn't realize that many folks were assigned to those people. But now we know, and we know they'll be going away pretty much now. They're done. President Trump cited concerns over taxpayer expenses and recent activities of Hunter Biden as reasons for revocation. He highlighted Hunter Biden's current vacation to South Africa, a nation recently removed from U.S. economic assistance due to human rights issues, as an example of inappropriate use of taxpayer-funded protection. The Secret Service has acknowledged the president's directive and is coordinating with relevant parties' involvement to make the change promptly. Typically, Secret Service protection extends to presidents and their spouses for life, while protection for adult children concludes when the president leaves office. The continuation of protection for Hunter Biden and Ashley Biden beyond the president's term has not been publicly clarified. However, Donald Trump did extend the Secret Service coverage for his adult children for about 6 months after he left the presidency as well. So it's not unprecedented, but the more or less ongoing service that goes with Secret Service is usually funded to children, child-age children, or your like college-age children, and as they get on that end. Folks that are in their late 20s and 30s don't usually get protection because they're not really seen as threats. However, Donald Trump is Donald Trump, and you can see this in the light that you want to. However, it's going to happen. So we're taking a pause from the news at the moment. We're pausing from the stories, 4 down, 4 more to go, and going to give you a chance to help us do some grand things for the Conversation Project. We need your help in growing the project. Our real metric for how we do is essentially our YouTube numbers, because they pay us a little bit with the numbers, and we're almost at 2,000 subscribers. 1,970, I think, is the number that we have right now, and so we're almost there. And you can help us by doing a few things. Number one, you can like this video you're watching right now, so that algorithm will show it up for more people, and those more people will hopefully join in the fun as well. You can share it with like-minded people who enjoy this type of news coverage and this type of commentary, and hopefully they'll like it as well. If you like it and the algorithm likes it and everyone likes it, I will see how much it's liked, and I will do more of this, making sure I'm doing the best I can do for you. And the overall thing you can do, if you're not getting this natively in your feeds, whether you're watching this on X or Facebook or YouTube, YouTube is our scorecard, but we need people to follow us there, other places as well. Subscribe, like us, follow us, whatever the terminology is, subscribe to us wherever they are. And you can go to our website, thisistheconversationproject.com, and find more iterations of us. We have our audio podcast, we have our short clips, we have things on in newsletter form. Find those places, subscribe as well, so we have more ways to get information to you. Our email newsletter is great because I can always get to you via email when these other forms go down. So subscribe today, share and like what you see so far, and we'll grow the News Nerd Nation with more folks to talk about these news stories. Some good, some bad, sometimes silly. This story qualifies as one of the bad, as parents of missing Pittsburgh student urged the Dominican police to declare her dead. Parents of Sadishka Konaki, the 20-year-old University of Pittsburgh student who went missing on March 6 during spring break at Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, have formally requested for the Dominican authorities to declare their daughter legally deceased. The decision follows extensive search efforts that have led to local authorities to conclude that she is likely drowned, but no evidence of foul play involved. Kanaki was last seen in the early hours of March 6, headed to the beach near her hotel with a group of friends. Surveillance video shows her walking towards the beach around 4:15 a.m. Subsequent searches uncovered her clothing on a beach chair, but despite the comprehensive air, land, and sea searches, no body, no other signs have been recovered. An individual last seen with Kanaki, identified as Joshua Reby, has cooperated fully with the investigation. He reported they were caught in a strong ocean current while swimming, and after assisting her back to shore, he lost sight of her. Authorities have found no evidence indicating that Reby was involved in any wrongdoing, and he's been released from detention. Now, the Kanaki family is expressing their that they're going to look for the initial legal identification of her death to allow them to begin the grieving process and move forward with the matters that need to be done. They acknowledge that no declaration can truly ease their grief. They don't have an actual answer to what happened to her, but this brings them one step closer to honoring her memory out there. We are definitely sending thoughts, prayers, energy, everything we can to the Kanaki family over the loss of their daughter, and anyone who has been involved in this incident who is dealing with the grief that is entailing. The transition to this story is terrible. So there will be a pause because I will use this clip going forward. We're talking about furries. There's a new bill in Texas that targets furries and bans non-human behavior in schools. Let me read what the robot editor has given to us. Texas State Representative Stan Gerdes has introduced a Forbidding Unlawful Representation of Role-Playing in Education, or Furries Act, aiming to prohibit non-human behavior in public schools. The bill seeks to ban actions such as wearing animal accessories, that are tails, leashes, and collars, making animal noises like barking or meowing, and using items not designed for humans. Exceptions are provided for school mascots, theatrical performances, and specific dress-up events limited to 5 days per school year. So, Governor Greg Abbott has endorsed the Furries Act, linking it to advocacy for school voucher programs. He argues that parents should have the option to transfer their children to schools without such distractions, emphasizing a focus on fundamental education. Critics contend that the Furries Act addresses a largely non-existent issue, diverting attention from more pressing education concerns like books and lunches. They argue that the bill serves as a distraction from substantial policy discussions, such as debates over school voucher programs in general and education funding. The initial books and lunches things. Now, if you remember, I don't know how long back it was, there was the talk of the internets or talk radio about the kids who were using litter boxes in the bathrooms. They asked for litter boxes so they could use them, which turned out to be pretty much not an actual thing. But just like the dogs, eating the cats, someone saw it online. Someone said, this is bad. Someone went on this is bad. And it would be bad if it actually really did happen. Now, I'm not in Texas. I'm not in every single school there. So maybe some kid put a litter box down there as a joke, and maybe somebody pooped in it just to be a jerk. It could have happened. Chances are it didn't, because let's be frank for a second. People walking around with big old furry heads, walking past school stuff, just in general, because Furries tend to congregate in places where there's more Furries, and they're out there, can be out there open, have fun, conventions, and parties, things like that. Just being out there in the middle of the crowd, which is you walk around with your animal head on, if you're not the mascot, seems like a thing that would bring undue attention to a person who really wants to just be themselves, if you will. Furries Act. It is, of course, endorsed by Governor Abbott, who's wrapping into other things that are dealing with education. And Texas is, yes, like a whole nother country. California, also like a whole other country. And Gavin Newsom is trying to insert some influence, I guess, and trying to extend his platform. That is, he's running out of time as governor, moving towards something else. And here's the thing that has people sort of also scratching their heads. Gavin Newsom's office is sending burner phones to CEOs with direct access to the governor of California, current governor of California. Strengthening ties with the business community, he has distributed prepaid cell phones to about 100 CEOs of major companies across the state. The devices come pre-programmed with the governor's direct contact information and are accompanied by personalized notes encouraging open communication. One such reportedly stated, "If you ever need anything, I'm a phone call away." The initiative is conceived by Governor Newsom, aims to ensure that business leaders can easily reach him regarding any concerns or issues that they may face. Governor's office has reported that the approach has already led to valuable interactions between Newsom and various executives. To fund this endeavor, which is important, the actual who's paying for these things, the California Protocol Foundation, a nonprofit organization that supports gubernatorial activities, covered the expenses, ensuring the taxpayer money did not be utilized. My first question for this foundation typically finances events such as inaugurations and official state functions, so it's all covered over someone else's money, not Governor Newsom's actual budget as a governor. While observers have praised the direct line of communication as a pinnacle of proactive measures to support states' economic issues, others raise concerns about the exclusivities and access granted to corporate executives. Like, why are these guys the ones getting free phones? Additionally, discussions have emerged regarding the transparency of communications as well, as they might not be subject to public record laws, being they are privately bought phones, and that's why you buy burner phones, so you can't really track what's going on. Overall, the initiative reflects Governor Newsom's commitment to maintaining California's competitive edge, and maybe, just maybe, showing that his leadership acronym is something to go to another level in another, air quotes, state. Now, we wrap things up today with a bit of a silly story. Just like the Furry story was one that's like, yeah, why are we talking about this? You found it conversational, so we're talking about it. This one as well. I did not think this would get much play. It got enough to make it interesting, so we're going to wrap up today's 8 stories with this one. The headline reads, French politician tells Trump, "Give me back the Statue of Liberty." Yeah, I know I said it. I don't do impressions, but I could not. I just couldn't get around that one. But that's the only use I'm using it. So there we go. French politician suggesting that returning the Statue of Liberty is kind of at play right now because we don't deserve it. A member of the French member of the European Parliament, Raphael Glucksmann, recently proposed the United States return said statue to the France nation. He argued that the current U.S. administration actions are misaligned with the values that the state represents. The statue represents, particularly regarding the alliances with authoritarian figures and dismissals of scientific freedom. Gluckman stated, "We gave it to you as a gift, but apparently you despise it. So she will be happy here with us." No French accent, but the inflection was there. The spirit was there. So in response, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt dismissed Gluckman's suggestion, asserting that the U.S. will not, and she said absolutely not, return the statue. She emphasized America's involvement historically in liberating France from World War II, remarking that without U.S. intervention, quote, "the French are not speaking German right now," unquote. We can battle with the quotes back and forth, I guess. Gluckman's call is largely symbolic and does not reflect the official stance of the French government. So there's that. But it underscores existing diplomatic tensions between the U.S. and some European allies. The Statue of Liberty, a gift from France in 1886, has long symbolized freedom and democracy. This exchange highlights the differing perspectives on values in the context of geopolitical dynamics. What's going on in the world today? There's something wrong in the world today, and everybody knows what it is. We are living on the edge. Yes, we are living on the edge. Thank you. Thank you, Aerosmith, for being so prophetic back in the 90s. We have wrapped up the articles that are quote-unquote live, or actually used yesterday for the live stories repeat. Now we go to the live stories that will be posted all day long here for you to engage in for the next iteration, which will be the Thursday morning iteration of things you might have heard. Our teaser section is where we talk about the stories we are going to tee up for you, and this is one we're teasing that's happening soon. Now, this is one I don't think is going to make it, but it was interesting enough to bring it up here. And if you made it this far, you have a chance to understand how this thing works. How does this thing work? Oh, it's actually really simple. We have feeds on Facebook and X. We have our pages on Facebook and X. Facebook.com/thisisconversationproject and X.com/th_conversation. And we look for you to engage in those stories we post every single 50 minutes from various news sources. If you engage in them enough, I'll get a chance to see them as conversational, and we'll pick from them. The top 15 stories of the day, we get about 30 in the daytime. We'll get a shot for the 8 stories we pick for tomorrow's extravaganza. That is things you might not have heard. Now, this is a headline I don't expect to talk much about, but we'll see what happens. Mexico City introduces a bloodless bullfighting in a win for animal rights activists. This is an interesting take, so I think it's good to put out here, but we'll see if it actually makes it into the realm of talking about tomorrow. Now, the story we teased yesterday was the Gaza and the strikes that killed about 326 people in Palestine in the area as Israel basically ripped up the ceasefire and just going after a mosque again. This story was very pivotal, very high, but to be honest, I needed some happier things, so we put in the story about the Statue of Liberty to go on that one. And I had to do the story on the family wanting to put the official tag of deceased on their daughter after disappearing during spring break. Those are stories that just sort of felt like they need to be there. So this story did not make it to the 8 today, but you've seen it all over the place. They're talking about it in the mainstream. It's one of the bigger stories going forward. That isn't Trump and Russia or the space station. So you can go look for it as well as there. But this is how stories work. We may talk about something we're talking about. We put out stories all day long for you to engage in, but you have to engage in it. So click the right emoji face, the right live for it. If on Facebook, there's 6 of them. On YouTube, there's just a heart. Well, on YouTube. On X, there's just a heart. You can show that and engage in it. But you also can send comments and reply back to people back and forth in comments. You can share with other folks as well. The higher the link, higher that story literally gets engagement, better chance you have to talk about it in the next round. Simple. That's what makes this a dialogue, not a monologue. We ask you what stories should we talk about. You give me the suggestions, and we pull what we hope are the best ones for the day. If you disagree, email me at the conversation inbox at gmail.com, and we can discuss that offline. Something I did offline was write this book, write a bunch of books, just to keep a sanity going. But this is a book I wrote on sales, and because we are all salespeople. I wasn't exactly a salesperson back in the day when I worked in radio. I was in production, but I worked with salespeople and had to go on calls and had to do my best to help sell the things there. And just sort of on a whim, it just came to me that, you know what? Listen to a radio ad that said, over 90% of your sales staff has never read a sales book because they're trying to sell people onto a program. It's like, I've read sales books. You probably write one. So I wrote one. I conferred with a past sales manager I worked with. He said, yes, this sounds like good information to write it up. And I made this book for me as a way to give me something to do, and for you as a way to sell yourself, and not just as a salesperson, but as a person who needs to influence other folks. In that way, we are all salespeople. It's called Conquer Sales Objections, Conquer Sales Objectives. It's a tongue twister, and I really should have thought better about this, but it just seemed like great in the time. It has 21 specific responses to questions to counter common sales objections. So it's written like an actual sales book where people say, but I don't like the color. And you can say, well, we have other colors out there that can match your thing. It works just like that. 21 specific sort of objections that are sort of the canned responses to why people won't buy, why people don't commit, why people won't join up for your cause and process. This was written sort of in conjunction when I wrote the Now What Network manifesto, because you have to convince people to do things. And so how do you convince things? They're sales tactics. It's persuasion is just a sales tactic. So this is what this is in the simple guise of this is a book on sales. It's really a book on persuasion and getting people to stay open in conversation, stay open from pulling out a commitment. Because when you're in the sales market, a no is not necessarily a no. It's a no right now. There are hell no's in sales, but there's also, there's objections that are like, not right now, that you can get more qualification, more information that if you don't make that sale, it'll help you make another sale with someone who has similar objections that you can work on there. So get this book and work on your sales technique, because you may be a spouse that wants to convince your other spouse of something going on. You may be a teenager who wants to convince your parents of something you want to do. You may be an adult who needs to convince your teenager to do things going forward. You may just be a guy out there who's actually working sales and needs to figure out how to make more sales to hit that number for their commission. It's a very versatile book written as a sales book, but you get so much more from it by going into it. It's a $10 book on $10 book on Amazon as a paperback, $5 on Kindle. Based on where you get it, it's offered in various other bookstores, and they price it for different ways for their bookstore number. So if Amazon's not your cup of tea, I know it's on A-Books. I know it's on various other places like that. Check it out for those places as well. But there's links to Amazon in this presentation for you to buy the book there. Conquer Sales Objections, Conquer Sales Objectives. On sale now by J. Cleveland Payne. A chance to hype ourselves real quick. We are the Conversation Project, and we want to give you a chance to really get into the news coverage and feel like you're part of it. And so while we can't send you out there to cover the beat, we can't pay you that, we can offer you up the chance to tell us what stories are really worth chatting up. And that's why that's our unique selling process here. Your voice shapes the news, or at least the news coverage. Join a community that values meaningful conversation and fresh perspectives on the stories that impact all our lives. Even the story on the Furries. You guys wanted to talk about it. Trust me, you guys wanted to talk about it. That's why we're talking about it. So what we do, as I said, we put out news stories on the feeds every day, all day, every 50 minutes or so. And we look for you to go to our feeds on Facebook and X to tell us what stories to talk about. You can also stop by our website, thisconversationproject.com, for more details on other sponsors. Sponsors help us, keep things going. They're all affiliate sponsors, so when you buy from them, we get a small commission from whatever you bought. Also, there's our partnerships page where you can join up and officially partner up with us and help us financially and help us in the backgrounds doing on things and decisions. You can also just see past episodes, what we do, and see the news coverage that we have and get a deeper detail on what we actually are about. Plus our origin story, how this came to be. It started out way back when on a past project that was just supposed to be a couple of surveys a day to get some information there. And when that survey idea did not actually come through, it turned into a melding of a newsletter I did, 8 things to talk about, which are news stories in the morning, with the fact of letting you get a chance to vote them into the actual newsletter. And that's how we got to be where we are, with a couple of little bumps in the road on the way. Find out more about us and more about what we do, and see what you can do to help us if you feel up to it by going to the website. This is theconversationproject.com. This is the wrap up for Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. Not the wrap up show, but the wrap up for today's show for things you might have heard. We got through 8 stories. We somehow did it without very much coughing, hacking, or sort of the acid reflux going on. So we're glad about that one. And we did it basically under 30 minutes. We're working on trimming up a bit. We're working on reading the stories better and having the commentary actually fit in line with what's going on and less rambling. You can email me or comment in the video about the rambling, about what's going on. Maybe you want more rambling. I'm not sure why, but maybe you do. You can let us know how we're doing. And of course, let us know what we're doing really good and not so good so we can fix those things. Follow us on our feeds, consider being a partner, and be here tomorrow for another edition of Things You Might Have Heard. Make sure you are helping out, voting on the stories, of course. Also, stay limber, stay hydrated, stay on task for all the grand things you're here to do, because we need you here to live this life as a marathon and not turn into a sprint. Love you, mean it. Let's wrap it up for the day. Pretty day here in Arkansas. Hopefully pretty day for you where you are. We're going to have fun, or try to. You do as well. We'll join you tomorrow with more videos, more news stuff, Hopefully more better than worse stories, but the stories that you deem conversational. So you want to talk about it, we'll bring it up here on the Conversation Projects, things you might not have heard.